Hello everyone, this is Erik, the Asian movie enthusiast, and I'm just having a little bit of some Anok Scotch. It's quite good. As you can see from the color, it's got no artificial colors in it, non-chill filtered, all that other, fancy stuff. This is very high quality stuff though, Anok. I figured I'd let you know. And then in addition to that, if you see my Christmas tree up still, even though this video is going to be uploaded after Christmas, it's because I've done some of these recordings before Christmas ended. So if you see the Christmas tree up a little while longer in my future videos, bear with me. So let's get to the movie collection. Now, again, we're still in South Korea here. And the first one tonight is quite fun. And that is Shadowless Sword. So now the plot of this one is that you have a lady warrior who must protect and escort a prince back to his kingdom. And that's a basic premise. Now this has, I would classify this as like the no-nonsense version of Chinese wuxia films. Even though it's a Korean film, it seems to take homage from those films. And, the thing that makes this different is that it's less artsy, for lack of a better term. So, I do love the art design of films like Hero, House of Flying Daggers, and Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. But, in those movies you have people, I don't even know how to get into the details and the artsiness of those. If you've seen those films, you know what I'm talking about. This movie is the no-nonsense version. So you get, you do get some unrealistic jumps at times, but it's less focused on its presentation, I would say. And it's more focused on giving you the goods in terms of action. And this movie does that. There's a lot of good fighting in this, tons of good sword play and fights, and a nice variety of characters. And actually, the character development in this is actually pretty good. Now, the lead actress in this, I have to look up her name here, So-ye-yoon, is really good in this movie. She's totally convincing. Like, within the first 10 minutes, you're convinced that this chick could just kill just about anyone. And I really like her in this. She hasn't been in much else of... she hasn't been in that many other films or television series, and it's one of those things where you just kind of wonder why. Because she's so good in this. This is an old-school swordplay flick. Again, high on action content. It's got good performances, good overall quality. If you want something like that, that's just a crowd pleaser, check out Shadowless Sword. Another crowd pleaser film that, really has dropped off of people's lists in recent years. It was big when it came out, but nobody really talks about it anymore. And that is Shiri. So this one, I think I kind of understand why people really don't talk about it anymore. I mean, this was such a big blockbuster breakthrough film. I think this was released in 1999 or 2000, right in that area. And it was like a big... It's like a welcoming party for the Korean New Wave in terms of films, because they proved that they could do Hollywood-style films just as good or better than most Hollywood movies. At least I think with this film, it's a very nice attempt. I mean, it's like a terrorist plot. You have, a North Korean group of renegades who are trying to orchestrate an attack on the South. So they go into the South, and then they steal, like, this liquid bomb material. It's like a generic type plot. And the lead actor is like an agent for South Korea, and his wife they have like a relationship going on, and that's what makes this movie so different than a lot of American movies, that it focuses a lot more on the romance between the main agent and his wife than a lot of American movies would ever spend on it. And it tries to cash in on it, and it really does. I think it really cashes in. This has some good emotional weight to it for a film with such a generic, like, terrorist action plot premise. I think this one works. I haven't seen it in a few years, but I don't know. I mean, I could see why some people might think it's just like Hollywood-style fluff, but I really enjoyed it. And it's got a loaded cast. You got Suk-kyu, Yoon-jin Kim, Kang-ho Song, and Choi Min-sik Choi. And so that's just a loaded cast, and I liked it. You know, don't go in expecting something like Old Boy in terms of just overall just spectacularness. But, you know, if you want just kind of a generic Hollywood-style action flick with a Korean flavor to it that makes it a little bit different, check out Shiri. I enjoyed it. Alright, now this one's a film from recent years. Again, few people talk about. The Silenced. Now, if you haven't guessed yet, 2015 and 2016 have been outstanding years for South Korean horror. Outstanding years. They don't release that many horror films, not nearly as many as Japan does on a year-to-year basis. But the last few years, their slugging percentage, to use the baseball term, has just been out of this world. And this is another really good one, The Silenced. And it's not to be confused with the drama that came out in 2011 by the same name about the sexual abuse of the children. That's an excellent movie, by the way. But don't get that confused with this horror film from 2015. So you have this physically weak girl who is transferred to a mysterious all-girls boarding school. And this is set during the Japanese occupation of Korea, which has been kind of a theme in recent years for Korean films. They've had, I think, an increased number of films that have been set during the occupation era, which is actually a really interesting time period to set films because there's a lot of inherent drama there and conflict that you can mine from. But this one is, it's set mostly in the mansion location where these girls are basically training to get better. I guess they're trying to get better, get well. But there's something nefarious going on, behind the scenes. And that's where the horror comes in. So I really like this one. I think it had good relationships between the characters. It got definitely some good moments in it. The actual DVD itself is actually better to look at here. I'll cover it when we get to that year in my Asian horror playlist. But I really like the lead actress in this. She's been in a bunch of stuff. The Silenced. It's a good one. A little bit different. It won't play out quite like you think it will. Alright, our next film here I already covered in my Asian horror playlist. Alright, and that is Someone Behind You, also known as Voices, from 2007. Very interesting premise to this. And just to quickly go over it again, I have this girl, and her family is cursed, where, one by one, basically, they get cursed to where their family members and acquaintances attempt to kill them for no reason. They just go they go insane and they try to kill them. So imagine you're in this situation. Just imagine one day out of the blue, every person you know, like your family and your friends, they all try to kill you. Like just brutally murder you out of nowhere. And you have no idea what's going on. Like what? And that's the basic premise of the movie. And that's really what makes it an interesting watch. And I really like this one. It has its problems, which I went over in my mini review, but I think this is a very entertaining movie, and I always enjoy rewatching it. Speaking of quality horror films, I got another one here that I covered in 2004 in my horror playlist, and that is Spider Forest. Yeah, this movie's really high quality stuff. A guy gets into a car accident, he wakes up in the hospital bed, and his mind is just all messed up. His memories are messed up, and he tries to sort things out. That's the basis of this movie. Again, check out my Asian horror playlist from 2004 for details. This is very surrealistic, beautifully shot, very absorbing and moody. I compare this to a lot of David Lynch's films, although I think this is better than just about every David Lynch film I've seen, and I've seen most of his theatrical stuff. So if you like David Lynch, though, check this out. This is really good quality stuff, man. It's got that surrealistic, disturbing vibe to it. Some bloody moments here and there. Another Tartan Asia Extreme release. Always nice to see. Check out Spider Forest. Really good. Really good. It's one of the, when I recommend South Korean horror films to people, that's usually one of the first ones I recommend. If they're into, weird, surrealistic stuff. All right, our next film here is another South Korean romantic comedy, of course. How could it not be? And this is one that came out of nowhere when I first saw it. Again, I just rented it like on E-Hit back in the day, just because it was a South Korean romantic comedy, and it came through. Surprise Party, also known as Surprise. Now check out the premise to this one. Let me get this premise right. Alright, so a girl plans to give her boyfriend a surprise party when he returns to South Korea. But her plans are thrown into chaos when her father expresses his disapproval. So she sends her best friend to the airport, okay, in an attempt to stall her boyfriend for 12 hours while she works out, her problems with her father, who's just going ballistic, and set up the party. Unfortunately, her best friend has never met this guy before, and her friend doesn't want her boyfriend knowing that this is a problem right now. She doesn't want to deal with it. So this forces her friend to think of ways that a complete stranger could stall someone for 12 hours. And she uses some pretty crazy shenanigans, let's say. And this actor here is the lead actor from Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance. So if you liked him in that movie, that's another reason to see this. And then you have Min-hee Kim at the top, who recently starred in The Handmaiden. So if you liked her in that, that's another reason to see this movie. She's like the supporting character. So this it starts out maybe a little bit dodgy and a little bit slow, because she's trying to just, get this guy stalled. She's trying to stall him any way possible. And this guy thinks she's like crazy. You know what I mean? But as the film progresses, really not a whole lot to see on the back there, it gets really intelligent. Like there's some twists and turns along the way that are really, really interesting and fun. It's a really funny movie. I like this one a lot. This is one where like the second half of the film is just is a lot better than the first half, and it's fantastic. So Surprise Party comes recommended. All right, our next film here is a good solid action thriller again. The Suspect. Now that's Gyeong-yu, the lead actor from Train to Busan. So if you like the lead actor to Train to Busan, check out The Suspect, because he's the lead actor in this. And let me get the premise correct here. Now this is another one of those Korean films that, is similar to an American movie. You have The Man from Nowhere is kind of similar to The Professional, but it's a really good movie. You had The Berlin File that was similar to the Bourne films, but it's still a really good movie and probably better than all of the Bourne films. You have The Thieves, which has similarities, the first half, to Ocean's 11, but it's better than the Ocean's 11 remake, at least, in my opinion. So you have Korea kind of picking, certain influences and doing at least good, if not better, than what they influence from. And this is another one that's similar to the Bourne movies. You have a North Korean defector and proficient soldier who lives a quiet life in the South. He's just doing his thing. But he becomes a suspect after his acquaintances are murdered by assassins. And then he goes on the run from authorities and tangles with a bunch of bad guys. So this is just a good, solid, high-octane action flick. Like some of these other South Korean films, like The Berlin File or Assassination, it gets a little convoluted during the middle section. A little difficult to follow all the character relationships while, he's trying to figure stuff out. But it benefits on rewatches, because it makes you rewatch it a few times to get all the details. But even if you don't understand every little thing, this is still highly entertaining. Some really good action in this. Some of the editing is a bit choppy at times, but this is fun to watch. This has one of my favorite police barricade scenes. Kind of an interesting, creative way to break through a barricade that I would not typically expect. So this is good. The Suspect, very entertaining stuff. Again, if you're a fan of the Bourne films, you got to watch The Suspect and The Berlin File. I mean, they're great. All right, we got 2 in a row from Chan-wook Park, and I'm sure you could guess where we are based on the alphabet. So you have Sympathy for Lady Vengeance, the third film in his Vengeance trilogy, a thematic trilogy, not a trilogy that's based on continuity or the same story, just on theme. Now, this one I don't know, it's kind of hard to get into the story because it's kind of complicated. Obviously, I say watch it. It's my second favorite of this trilogy behind Oldboy. And basically, it's about a woman who goes to prison and gets out, and then she, let's see what the description says here. She's plotting revenge against her former teacher, played by Choi Min-sik. So, you know, this movie, the reason why I don't remember the plot, even though I love it so much, is because the plot really doesn't matter. It focuses so much on the character interaction, especially during the first half. And then there's a little bit of plot during the second half, during the revenge phase of the film, but it's still all based on character interaction. So this one, let's see here, let me get this lead actress's name right here. Lee Young-ae, or Young-ae Lee. She is outstanding. She starred in Daejang Gum, also known as A Jewel in the Palace, which is one of my favorite Korean television series. This actress is really good. She can act. And she hasn't been in that many things. I think she was in JSA, Joint Security Area, another Chan-wook Park film, and a few others. And then she, like, retired for a little while, and now she's kind of back. So, you know, this is one to watch for the central performance, the overall direction and quality. But don't expect, like a real dense, packed story to it. It focuses a lot on the character interaction. It kind of flows, you know, naturally through. So I really like this one. Sympathy for Lady Vengeance. Then, of course, we have Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance, of course. Again, some outstanding actors in this. There's a little bit of dust on it, I think. Got Do-na Bae in it, Kang-ho Song. So, this movie it was the second one that I saw, I think, in this trilogy. And it's very good. You know, you have a guy, he's deaf, and his sister is suffering from a major illness. She needs, like, a kidney transplant, I think, and he loses his job, so things are getting bad. So she actually comes up with a plan. She says, hey, listen, let's kidnap a kid. We won't hurt the kid. We'll get the money and ransom, give the kid back, and then we could pay for my surgery and my transplant. But, of course, things don't go quite as planned. So this is a very good quality flick, a bit slow-paced at times. You have a few disturbing moments in it. Lead actor is quite good. You know, Chan-wook Park's films, I gotta tell you, he's like the first director that convinced me that sex scenes can benefit a movie. Because a lot of times, you know, before I really got into cinema, like became a fan, a lot of the sex scenes I've seen in movies were pointless. You know, they were in horror films or whatever. And, you know, when I was confronted with some of the sex scenes in like in this movie, there's a masturbation sequence that I thought at first, I'm like, what is this? But when you think about the scenario, it's actually kind of interesting. And pay attention to that scene. It's not just a gratuitous scene. You have to think about what the characters are doing in that scene and what's going on. In Oldboy, the sex scene in that movie is of vital importance. I mean, really, it's one of the most important sex scenes in motion picture history. And then in Sympathy for Lady Vengeance, there's a sex scene at a dinner table that tells you a lot of what you need to know about that character. So, you know, I just came to mind, you know, Chan-wook Park was the first guy who really convinced me that, you know, a sex scene in a movie could really be used, you know, to build character development or story, you know, importance. And then finally, my favorite movie of all time. I went into this in pretty good detail in my Asian horror playlist from 2003, A Tale of Two Sisters. Check out my review for it there. My favorite movie ever. Any country, any genre. This DVD is probably the best DVD set I have in my entire collection in terms of special features. I remember watching all the special features on this. It has behind-the-scenes cast interviews, deleted scenes, post-production documentaries, a director's analysis, a psychiatrist's perspective, a letter from Su-mi, the character, a photo gallery, commentary with director and star. Look, it's just loaded. It's like commentary with the director, cinematographer, and lighting director, promotional footage. I mean, it's just ridiculous. This is the best DVD release that an Asian film has ever gotten in the United States, in my opinion, from what I've seen. And it's my favorite movie. So it's just blind luck. And when I watch the special features, you really get a feel. The film is so complex. All of the deleted scenes that they deleted were perfectly deleted from the movie. It's like if they would have left any of the dozen scenes that they deleted in the movie, it would have ruined something, ruined it. So, yeah, you gotta watch this. It's a horror film. It's fantastic dramatic elements, fantastic performances. You know, some people think it's a little bit hard to follow, but it is a puzzle-solving type film, but I think it's just so perfectly crafted. Check it out, Tale of Two Sisters. And we'll leave it at that tonight. So again, I will see you next time.